15. Sick, brutal, serial killers. Yang Xinhai. Known as the monster killer, Yang is the most prolific known serial killer China has ever seen. He would enter houses at night and slaughter everyone with axes, meat cleavers, and shovels. He confessed to committing 67 murders and 23 rapes between 1999 and 2003. He was executed in 2004. Alexander Pikyushkin. He was called the chessboard killer because he said he wanted to complete the chessboard and kill 64 people. He murdered mostly homeless men by beating their skulls with a hammer and inserting vodka bottles into the holes. He was arrested for the murder of 49 people, convicted for 48, but he asked a Russian court to add an additional 11 victims to the count, bringing the death toll to 60. Daniel Camargo Barbosa. Also known as the sadist of Chanquito, Camargo killed hundreds of primarily young virgin girls in several South American countries. It's believed he raped and killed over 150 young girls during the 1970s and 1980s. Camargo has been described as highly intelligent and well-read. He was eventually killed by Luis Masache Narvaez, the nephew of one of his victims. Anatoly Onoprienko. Anatoly was known by several nicknames, primarily the Butcher of Ukraine, Terminator, and Citizen O. He traveled across Europe killing people as he went. His total number of victims is unknown, but he has confessed to killing 52 people. He has also stated that he was a superior human specimen chosen to kill his fellow human beings. Patrick Wayne Carney. Patrick was called the trash bag killer, because he would dump the bodies of his victims along California highways wrapped up in trash bags. Dennis Rader. A family man, churchgoer, and pleasant neighbor are probably not the words you'd expect to describe a serial killer, but that was Dennis Rader, at least on the surface. Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer, which stood for bind, torture, kill, is responsible for the deaths of 10 people, 4 of which come from the Otero family. The murders began in 1974, but Rader was not caught until 2005. Tommy Lynn Sells. Tommy Lynn Sells is a Texas serial killer who murdered more than 70 people. Eventually though, after breaking into a 10-year-old girl's room and stabbing her repeatedly, the girl survived and helped the police track him down. Reports claim Sells was addicted to killing from the young age of 14. Sell describes himself as being the embodiment of hate. When you look at me, you look at hate. I don't know what love is. John George Hay. Called the acid bath murderer, Hay killed rich people and dissolved their bodies in acid baths in a warehouse. He then forged papers and sold their belongings. He has 6 confirmed kills to his name, but he claimed to have killed 9 people. He was sentenced to death and was hanged at Wandsworth Prison in London on August 10, 1949. Aileen Wuornos. Born on February 29, 1956, Aileen Wuornos is one of the most infamous female serial killers in history. Aileen was sexually abused by her grandfather as a teen and made a living as a sex worker. Her father killed himself while in prison for child molestation, while her mother gave Aileen and her older brother Keith to the grandparents. Aileen killed 7 men while she was working as a prostitute in Florida from late 1989 to 1990. She was executed in 2002 via lethal injection. William Bonin. Also known as the freeway killer, Bonin was a particularly brutal killer. He confessed to raping, torturing, and killing 21 boys and young men. During his sentencing, he sent letters to the families of his victims, describing in detail how they suffered when he killed them. People that knew him described him as having an insatiable lust for young men. Bonin grew up with a violent father. Moreover, Bonin was sexually assaulted at the age of 8 while living in a Connecticut detention center. Carla Homolka and Paul Bernando. Carla Homolka and Paul Bernando were a young Canadian couple that left behind a string of bodies from 1990 and 1992 in Canada. They raped and killed 3 underage women, including Homolka's own sister. Homolka would later claim she was an unwilling accomplice, although videotapes of the crimes that surfaced seemed to potentially contradict her claims. She was released from prison in 2005. Due to their youth, blonde hair, and good looks, they became known as the Barbie and Ken Killers. Rodney Alcala. When Rodney Alcala appeared on the 1978 show, The Dating Game, he made such a good impression he won the competition, although the girl he won a date with refused to go on it because she ultimately found him creepy. It was a good call. Alcala was in the middle of a rape and murder spree in California. Alcala ultimately tortured and murdered 8 women. Due to his disturbing television appearance, he's more commonly known as the Dating Game Killer. David Parker Ray. David Parker Ray, known as the Toy Box Killer. When his victims came to his torture trailer, they heard a brutal recording that let them know exactly what was about to happen to them. After his last victim escaped in 1999, he was only convicted of raping and torturing 2 women because no bodies were ever found, but he admitted to abducting 40 women, so he was given a sentence of 223 years. Robert Hansen. Robert Hansen was known as the Butcher Baker because of his mild-mannered facade, and penchant for confections allowed him to kill 17 women in the 1970s and 1980s, and assault many more. What's unique about Hansen is his modus operandi. He flew his victims in his helicopter to the nearby Alaskan wilderness, where he hunted them for sport. He later confessed that he killed women because he felt rejected by them. Eric Edgar Cook. In the 1960s, Eric Edgar Cook murdered at least 8 people in Perth and sometimes even performed necrophilia on their corpses. Cook was hanged on October 26, 1964. Cook was the last person to be hanged in the state of Western Australia. His death count is 8 murders and 14 attempted killings.